Hello everyone, welcome to theCUBE studio in Palo Alto. I'm John Furrier, theCUBE, for a special presentation with Riverbed and theCUBE called Getting Started with SD-WAN with two CTOs, Hansang Bae, CTO, and Frank Lyonnet, Deputy CTO with Riverbed. Thanks for joining me today.
Great, thanks for having us.
So obviously you guys are the CTOs, Chief Technology Officer, Deputy and the Chief here. What's going on under the hood? Because when you talk about the SD-WAN in action, really the number one thing comes in, it's networking. And everyone wants networking to go faster. They want it automated. Now you're hearing about all this great programmatic stuff. What's happening?
Yeah, I think the difference between previous generation, which SDN, right? SDN was very hot for a while. Didn't really go too far. The difference here is that we're solving tactical problems for the business. So that's very different than solving the problem for the IT folks, right? So I'll give you an example. IPsec, turns out kind of a pain to do, very laborious, prone to errors, et cetera. Well, SD-WAN, as a first step, takes care of that. It eliminates it completely. Out of the box, you have a secure transport, no thought involved. So that solves the IT problem, sure, but step ahead of that, get ahead of that, you can now seamlessly service your business because the thorny problem of difficult IT goes away, right? So this is about frictionless IT that allows your business to have a competitive edge.
Frank, talk about the use cases involved in SD-WAN, because there's everything from I need bandwidth, better bandwidth, cost perspective, to full transformation of the organization. So networking is, you got to move the packets around, but at the same time, it's strategic and it's now an asset to the organization.
Yes, definitely there's multiple definitions out there for SD-WAN, and we must not be mistaken. It cannot be only about savings on bandwidth costs. This is something we have been doing for 10 years or more. So now SD-WAN is really connected to a business driver. This is digital transformation, by the way. That is the first thing that is the source of everything we have been seeing in terms of SD, including SD-WAN. So we have been seeing customers starting with saving on bandwidth costs, but then they discover that there's more. There's definitely something that pertains to optimizing the way they are doing operations, agility, so the pressure from the business is coming there. But it's also about acknowledging the fact that as a bunch of their applications are in the cloud, they cannot do networking just like they were doing before. So this is adoption of the cloud that is the first real movement toward SD-WAN. How do you connect your SaaS applications back to your user and things? So this is a real question, and there's multiple options out there. And there's also a bunch of challenges that need to be solved. So this is the first of those use cases.
And I think one of the good ways to kind of sum that up is to say, you know, what if you could live in a world as an IT guy where when the business says, hey, I need to roll out, and oh, by the way, give me 10 times the capacity. Done, right? Push of a button, that's what automation brings to you. What if business says, hey, by the way, Frank, I'm rolling it out in Australia, can we make sure we have enough bandwidth there? Oh, and by the way, I need it next week. Now, for the first time with SD-WAN, infrastructure people can say, next week? Don't you want it tomorrow? Because I'm ready to hit the button, right? So SD-WAN is that revolutionary. It's not an incremental, a better routing, easier this. It's a revolutionary way of thinking about how IT can make businesses be more competitive.
The software piece is interesting because you look at networking, there's an operational aspect of it. You mentioned the bandwidth. I mean, that's basic. You got to have basic needs.
Of course.
You got to move the packets around the network and do all that stuff, check. You're getting at something different here, which is, I want to tune into the business speed. So the speed of the business really becomes the next table stakes, which was what the cloud's doing.
That's right.
So now, how does that change networking? Because we've seen with cloud, no perimeter, different kind of provisioning capabilities, automatic provisioning. Now you have multi-cloud. You guys can do that kind of multi-cloud stuff right now. This is not obvious to many people.
That's right.
What's the magic behind it?
So I guess if we take SD-WAN as something that is an evolution that we are forced to go into, this can be the standpoint of some of the customers. Yes, okay, we need to move to SD-WAN because we need automation. But if you flip that around, what you want to achieve is unleash the capacity of the business to innovate. So we have organizations, interestingly enough, that completely took that into account and are redefining the way they are organized. It's not something very common, but we have the first occurrence of customers that are interested into still connect. Well, their title is not networking head, but more like DevOps head. So this is the starting point of a lot of organizations that want to fully embrace
That's
the full
a full
power of the
wholesale
cloud.
change. You're talking about a new scenario, the third one, which is, I want to completely transform my business. But in the spirit of getting started with SD-WAN, I want to ask you guys a question.
Sure. Absolutely.
See how you guys can come with this one. IT people come in two flavors. I'm freaking out or I'm jumping for joy. Because that's really kind of what's happening. You have guys are ops guys, hey, lock down the network. You know, we're going to check all the boxes. Then you have other people say, oh, we're liberated with DevOps. It's going to be a freedom, automatic provisioning. So where's the balance? And describe your reaction to that phrase, freaking out versus jumping for joy.
And I think I can answer it this way. So I'm sure everybody can relate to this, is that every outage I've ever been involved in, and some spectacularly big, has always been, the root cause has always been, we had a template, we had a standard, we just didn't have time to roll it out. Or I had a template, but I made a mistake. Human latency, right? People are very, very bad at doing mundane tasks at 2 a.m. when network changes happen, no surprise. Yeah. So SD-WAN takes care of that drudgery of the very important work, which is IT. So SD-WAN says, you know what? Make your decisions and go from whiteboard concept with your business to implementation in less than a week. It can be shorter than that, but let's not bring too much shock to the system. So the whole idea of SD-WAN is, don't freak out about your job, because we're enabling the IT people to meet the business demand at their speed.
So speed's a double-edged sword. It's on one side, the fear of going too fast and breaking stuff or making something go down. Also, there's the other side of the coin, which is you can bring it back as fast.
That's correct.
Talk about that dynamic, because I think that's interesting conversation.
So I think the biggest difference is, yes, so let's put it out there, right? Failure at the speed of automation is fantastic, fantastically terrible. But at the same time, the big difference is that the recovery from that is automatic as well. Because in the world of SD-WAN, it's enable, disable. It's not about touching every single end device to fix the problem that you might have caused. Because let's face it, today, if you roll out, and I know some of you are thinking, I have an automated way of pushing out a template, and that's great, that's a start. But to recover from that means you have to touch every device yet again. Whereas with automation, from an SD-WAN perspective, it's all centralized. You push it from a central location, you withdraw it from a central location. So it's a different recovery
On those
model.
outages you mentioned earlier, you've been involved in the past where they've had been a human error or a template issue. What was the recovery like? Probably just as bad, right? So the slowness is on both sides, right?
Absolutely, and I think the biggest problem too is, and this is something that not too many SD-WAN vendors talk about, is visibility. If I had $1 for every time there was an outage and someone said, who's impacted? And it would be at least 45 minutes to an hour before anybody can say definitively, these groups of business or this location is impacted. So we have the luxury of having a BU whose sole purpose in life is to bring visibility from application, user, and network level. So we're bringing that to bear and marrying that with software-defined WAN. So like Frank said, we don't stop at just making it easy for the IT folks, right? IPsec example that I gave you. What we're talking about is allowing the business to be just as agile, just as flexible, and including multi-cloud. What if you could, as an IT person, forget about, is it Azure, Amazon, Google, SoftLayer, whatever cloud vendor you're talking about, what if that didn't matter, right? Because with the right SD-WAN philosophy, there is no difference between a branch, a laptop at a hotel, a data center, Azure, or Google, or Amazon. It's just a connectivity point from beginning to end. All you have are publishers of application and subscribers of that application. Everything else goes behind it. Don't get me wrong, it takes design, and like you said, packets have to go somewhere, but the complex design goes away with SD-WAN.
So go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, so I want to relate that to one of the use cases that we have been seeing, which is isolation of some of the traffic. Let's take the example of IoT that we understand. I mean, it's a recommendation that is everywhere. We want to isolate IoT traffic from the rest of the traffic. How do you do that without SD-WAN? Okay, I put some VLANs there, I put some VRF there. What do I do in the cloud? So there's really that notion of silos on which you provide some manual type of processes to implement that segmentation, source of error, and you defeat the purpose of segmentation.
It's a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid.
You're throwing pre-existing stuff at a problem.
And it's a complex thing to do, and we know that there will be errors. Therefore, holes, right? You suddenly defeat the purpose of your protection. So SD-WAN, especially in the context of SiliconANGLE, is allowing to have one single policy that is, defined wherever the workloads are, wherever the users or things are. So this is the kind of top-level benefit that we can bring, and only SD-WAN can bring.
Well, I like that example. SD-WAN is growing up, and your use case of Internet of Things, IoT, is really spot on, because that highlights the growing up, and that's happening very, very fast. IoT is really becoming a tactical, strategic board agenda item, and going down to the technical folks, because IoT is now blending the physical world, analog and digital.
Yep.
And so people are connecting. That's a network issue. You put on the network, it's now an IoT device.
That's
you
right.
mentioned that's anything. But cloud also highlights this, because now with compute and analytics, the cloud really makes that connect well. So you guys have this multi-cloud thing. Take me through that, because I'm a customer of yours. If I'm a CIO or I'm running an IT department, you got my attention, because I've heard everyone talk multi-cloud all day long. I don't believe it. I don't think it could work. I've looked at latency between clouds. I got my Office 365 on Azure. I run some stuff on Redshift. I do some stuff over Google. Those apps are domiciling on those clouds.
And to prove that point, just for kicks, because it's easy, I connected every instance of Amazon in the world as part of my routing infrastructure. I had access, I could ping, bring up servers to every instance of Amazon, and by the way, I can do that with Azure as well. To me, there is no difference between a server running in a data center, running in Amazon, running in Azure, right? What that means, from a tactical, so what does it mean to me as a business person? Well, what if you can enforce your Active Directory login services to Amazon? Because it's not Amazon Azure anymore, it's your VPC. The fact that it runs on a different cloud system doesn't matter, because we automatically connect those two together. So as a business person and as an infrastructure person, don't worry about what cloud it's in, because we'll seamlessly connect it together. And the perfect example is Azure Active Directory service being presented to Amazon. You can do that because it's your VPC. Do with it as you will, and by the way, when you're done, turn it off.
All right, so this is interesting. So the sequence of operations here relative to getting started with SD-WAN is take care of the bandwidth costs, no problem, check. But it's the hybrid, it's the SaaS application, and now when you get into multi-cloud, you now take that through. So take me through the impact. What does it mean to the customer to have that multi-cloud capability? What's the benefits? What's in it for them?
So I think I'll start first, and then we'll go into some of the more use cases, is that the bigger challenge, which by the way it sounds awesome, is that infrastructure people tend to think of and solve problems from the tools that they know how to use today. SD-WAN is very different. So the first advice that I have is stop thinking through the lens of the tools that you have today, right? And this is that whole DevOps versus infrastructure argument that's raging these days. And the bottom line is, it's either IT keep pace or perish, right? And that sounds ominous, but guess what? The other side of that coin is, you get to join the party. You're no longer a cost center. You're no longer, at worst case, a necessary evil, right?
So be open to new tooling.
That's right. Be open to new tooling. The power that the new tooling brings, right? This is something that DevOps folks have had and enjoyed. So why is it that infrastructure people are laggards in this? And I'll tell you why. And I had this conversation because one of the application guys said, you IT guys, man, I got 8,000 servers, what's the big deal? And my point was, you have 8,000 servers for your app, I have 2 backbones for my company. That's it.
Yeah.
So slow and steady wins the race is in our DNA. And SD-WAN says, now you can have both. You can have that agility, but that stability, right? So when you have agility and stability, the cost savings automatically happen.
I think that's the big deal, because again, A lot of my friends are networking guys, and there's a lot of dogma in networking, but it's for the right reasons.
That's right.
Networks can't go down, right? I mean, when networks go down, you know what hits the fan. So take us through that scaling, because agility and stability is really a good message. What does that mean? I mean, how does the customers do that? How do they get there?
So I guess, yes, you have to put some trust on to vendors like us to take care of stability and just get the benefit of agility, which is that extra thing that you really can leverage to support the business. So I think that it's important to send a message there that SD-WAN will not take over the job of anybody. It's just changing the way people will operate, the way people will think. And it's amazing to see some customers that I know for 10 years, 15 years. I mean, yes, those were CCIEs, network specialists. And when I'm coming back to them with Steel Connect, I mean, they have really evolved, just like we have evolved. Yeah. I mean, we have. We know all together that it's about changing the overall behavior, moving to DevOps, understanding what's going on in the cloud. We are techie, so it's good stuff, in fact, for everybody to understand that. And those customers that went through the different steps of evolving, maturing that ID, they are really taking us into use cases again, where it's really about, okay, now I've got a request from my business, which is to deploy that new workload. And by the way, on those sites that exist out there, but I need to add that to some of our sites, retail, pop-up stores, right? I want to do some digital marketing on pop-up stores. Okay, what do I do? And I had a customer doing me a demo with a script, provisioning a backend in AWS, a front end, and in a few clicks, provisioning connectivity to that workload on the pop-up stores, right? With just an internet connection.
So funny,
this is amazing.
IoT is, all this stuff is great. IoT, all these new paradigms, is essentially networking. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, edge of the network, you just talked about provisioning. Think about how hard that was. That was a campus a couple years ago.
That's right.
That's an office, remote office. The notion of a retail space that pops up is just another remote edge point. So this is not new concepts, but the software makes it a difference. So I think that's where I see the connection. So I'd ask you this question. When you walk around with Steel Connect, which we saw the demos on the last episode, really impressive. What do customers say? I mean, for folks that never seen it before, what's their reaction? And for folks that work with you guys, what is the reaction for Steel Connect?
I think I can give you some customer quotes without mentioning their names. I had one customer who, after sitting through their presentation, said, if this stuff works, we need to rethink our strategy. Now, this is coming from a head of architecture that reported to the CIO, right? Think about that statement and break it down. Yes, there has to be trust about it's a nascent field, new field, I get that. But when you truly embrace SD-WAN, not just from a cost perspective, that's a great catalyst. Everybody wants that because that's an easy feather in the cap. Once you go beyond that and you start to think about the possibilities that SD-WAN can, and our version of SD-WAN, which we call Steel Connect, can bring to you, it's a different conversation with the business. You're not talking about, give me time. Imagine that pop-up store where you say, you know what, give me 2 weeks and I might have something for you. In this world of Snapchat, kids are changing their minds on a day-by-day basis, never mind 2 weeks.
It could delay the opening of the retail outlet, and all kinds of interesting business side effects.
That's correct. And again, I keep going back to the business agility. It's high time that IT people keep up with the business and in fact, surpass it using cloud of clouds.
Frank, we were talking before we came on the segment here about video conferencing and having kind of town hall meetings, and we were kind of joking, when something goes down in a business, you can see how fast something can move the mob. Now that we're all connected on Snapchat, things go viral instantly. Like the United Airlines comment, we were talking about United Airlines, okay, they have this big viral thing. Took them like 3 days to respond, next thing you know, their brand suffered. I mean, imagine the impact of their business. They could have had a town hall meeting. Let's take through that use case. Hey, let's set up a network. We're gonna have all these people dial in and provision it up. Well, that's gonna take 2 weeks. Every day the stock is getting hammered. I think they lost $1 billion in market cap on the first day. So there they need to provision a video network. Okay, take us through that. What would you guys do with SD-WAN?
So for me, it's easy. With the right SD-WAN, I'll compare and contrast, okay? Today, you have to go and touch every edge device, and you have to change your quality of service, because video, AF class, AF41, for example, has a certain amount of quality of service that it can use. So you have to go and touch every device of every infrastructure device at every location to give it that bandwidth that's required, okay? So now, that takes maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the size of your network. By that time, how much did they lose? $1 billion overnight, right? Do the math, versus the new world of SD-WAN, where I say, you know what, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern, quality video is going to have top quality of service marking. And then when I'm done, I'm going to turn it off. That's the actual difference between today's workflow and the brave new world.
And by the way,
SD-WAN.
video, just to point out, just not in that one use case, video is becoming the #1 app for users, whether you want to accentuate it, and in this case highlight it, or in some cases not let everyone watch Game of Thrones Monday morning from their desk, or those kinds of things are going on. And you guys have that policy-based capability.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'd like to pick up on the change management. Let's be honest, in fact, us people in the networking space, we're a bit of laggards when it comes to providing that capability. Because on the other aspects of IT, it's a no-brainer, of course, we can do that. We can do that, adaptation in a breeze. But then when it was about the network, we were stuck into a situation where, yes, change management was something that was a nightmare. I mean, everybody talks about QS being a nightmare for so long, right? Now, obviously, with SiliconANGLE, with SD-WAN, we can fix that.
Okay, my final question for you guys as we wrap up this segment is competition. For folks out there looking to get started and evaluate SD-WAN, because right now software-defined everything is happening. We're seeing it across the board. It's software and data. You guys, from a networking angle, SD-WAN. How should your customers and potential customers evaluate you vis-a-vis the competition, Riverbed versus the competition? What should they look for, and how should they evaluate it for them?
I'll give a couple of different cookbooks to successful proof of concept, if you will. It does start with that IPsec, that secure tunnel that can separate and differentiate traffic and quality of service. It does involve making sure that the right important applications get preferential treatment, and oh, by the way, move over to a different lane. So creating HOV lanes on demand is what SD-WAN is about, right? It can be time-based, it could be user-based, it can be, so it's not just a static configuration, it's very, very fluid. It's an HOV lane, think of it this way, it's an HOV lane from your house to your work because you have an important job that day, right? SD-WAN says you can do that. I can get quality of service down to user level with a few click of a button. So from a competitive landscape, IPsec is important, but differentiating application and user by name, not IP addresses, in the world of SaaS, IP addresses doesn't mean anything, is also important. And then the other one is the cloud, right? Think of the cloud as your data center. So whatever you do in the world of SD-WAN should be just as easy at branch, data center, cloud, and cloud of clouds, right? And if it encompasses all of that, then you found the right SD-WAN vendor.
I think that's exactly right. We need to help customers to understand that it's not about replicating what they have been doing with the new cool technology that is slightly more automated. This is about rethinking the way you architect a network, and this is something we have been hearing from analysts that I've been personally seeing over the past couple of years. It's now down to not only the networking people, but also the cloud people, but also the security people to sit together and look at all the use cases around the WAN. And obviously this has evolved toward SaaS, toward IaaS, toward a lot of things that pertains to automation. So this is really the advice that I would give to customers. Okay, don't fall into the trap of comparing SD-WAN with WAN. It has to be something more. It has to include the cloud.
Yep. And I'll give you the secret sauce that I've been dying to get out there. What's the biggest differentiator for us? We've removed the pain of latency for applications. We've been doing it for over 10 years. So yes, bandwidth is plentiful. I have a gigabit service at home. It's wonderful. But it still doesn't take away the latency when I have to interact with folks in Sydney or in Singapore. And we take that pain of latency away, have been doing that for over 10 years, and it's a perfect marriage made in heaven. As the network grows to include cloud, where theoretically, it shouldn't matter if your instance is in Ireland, if it's in Singapore, if it's in Korea, if it's in Germany, or San Jose, or in Virginia. But because of latency, it matters. What if you could have a vendor that makes that pain go away as well? And that's our secret sauce.
You know, what's interesting is that the world's changed. The network used to dictate what applications could do. Now applications are dictating what the networks do, which means it has to be programmable.
That's right.
And that is interesting because that changes, that flips it upside down.
That's correct. And that's that business agility that we've been harping on this whole time.
Talking about marriage, let me add a third to the problem. We have also visibility, right, in the portfolio. And it's amazingly important because, you know, in one click, I can deploy a policy. I mean, in one click, I can kill through my wrongly configured policy a bunch of workloads. So it's super important to be in a position to provide new tools, new ways of verifying what's going on. I have an intent. I want the network to behave like this. I need to verify immediately whether or not I'm going the right direction, right? So just like you drive, you have your super powerful wheel that brings you everywhere. You need to know whether or not
and that's
there's
that
a wall
whole
there.
Trust but verify model, right? I trust that it's doing the right thing, but I want to be able to verify it. And with SD-WAN, it's built in.
Riverbed, you guys have been doing some great work. I was joking with my friend over the weekend. We were just talking about SD-WAN in general, just because we do on the weekends. But
who doesn't?
I said, WAN's interesting. I mean, the world is a WAN now. I mean, the network is global. That's essentially a wide area network. It's called the internet.
That's right.
And you treat it like a WAN, and then there it is, endpoints, you have remotes.
That's right. And Sun Computer, unfortunately, was right. They were just decades early, right? The computer, or the network is the computer. And with the SD-WAN and cloud movement, it really can be anywhere. So,
I get a funny anecdote. Dave Vellante interviewed Scott McNeely, and he was like, "I just should have called it cloud."
There you go. That's all you needed.
Guys, thanks so much for spending the time here inside the CUBE studios. I'm John Furrier with Riverbed on getting started with SD-WAN. Thanks for watching.